Hey everybody, it's Jimmy T or Jim Turk from BeatMyDisease.com. I hope you've been enjoying the free video series. Um, this one is the T in control, and that's really about training. And when we talk about training, we're talking about training your mind and training your body. And so training your mind, we talk a lot about when people have Alzheimer's, or to prevent your mind from going numb as you get older, to do a lot of puzzles and things like that. There's a lot of things on the internet, so I'm going to kind of leave that to you. I will say that there's definitely a lot of research to show that things like learning an instrument or a different language are huge in terms of not only stimulating your mind to keep working and it's a new thing, but also you become passionate about that. So in my case, I'm a drummer, and I find that just drumming is a release. It just makes me feel good. It's almost meditative. It's kind of odd how it works, but it really is something I enjoy doing, and even though I can't do it like I used to, it's to this day I do a lot of it, and it just makes me feel better. And again, when we're talking about feeling better, we're talking about you feel better for a reason, right? Your body's secreting all those hormones that are going to make you feel a lot better about how things are working. That's a better environment for healing, and a lot of other things. So I would really encourage you to do that. So the other part of training is training your body. And training your body is huge. I mean, there's a lot of research to show that training your body releases, for example, different kinds of chemicals that can stimulate your body to not feel pain as much, or to heal better, or things like that. And so there's a lot of research to even show that, for example, in rheumatoid arthritis, exercise, even though it seems like it would be counterintuitive, because there you've got a situation where it's hard on your joints, or it feels hard on your joints to do certain things. So it seems like strength training would be the last thing you'd want to do. And there's actually research to show that it's one of the most beneficial things you can do, like almost as beneficial as taking drugs for that condition. So again, it's a really important, really crucial thing that you do, and I would really encourage you to do that. Now, everything I've done with training relates to stuff I've read. I've read a lot about how to get the most bang for the buck, because in my situation with MS, I am very sensitive to heat, and if my body temperature increases even a fraction of a degree, that is a huge thing for me. I mean, it makes me almost useless. And so I've tried to figure out how to get the most bang for the buck, and I've done that by reading books on the subject or reading research articles on the subject. And believe it or not, there are ways to do that. And then trial and error. So I've been exercising, well, really for most of my adult life, because I was a marathoner and all this kind of stuff before I really started having issues related to my disease and was not able to do that anymore. So exercise is something I've always really looked into. I have a scientific background, so reading the research articles and things it's not only something I enjoy, something I understand, and as much as I can, I'd like to sum that up for you as well. So when we talk about exercise and what I do for exercise, I really do two things. So strength training is a huge part of it, but the other part of it is I try to stimulate nerve action, because MS, in my case, MS has a lot to do with nerve endings and the immune system attacking the nerves, and I want to, as much as I can, stimulate that function, get the blood flowing. I think that's good for a lot of things, so I would encourage you to do that as well. We'll talk a little bit about that, but mainly I want to talk about the strength training part of it. So again, as I said before, I'm looking at getting the most bang for my buck. I mean, that's just how I do things, and that's how I have to do things because of my current condition. So what I've done is I've figured out, and I've read about the subject, about how to get the most bang for my buck. What can I do? Well, it turns out that muscle tissue, if you truly exhaust it, so now think about historically, we've been told lift weights every 2 days, right? You have to lift weights 2 days. If you're a bodybuilder or whatever, if you want to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, you have to lift weights every 2 days. That's how you get the best results. Well, it turns out that's not scientifically true. I've read a lot of research articles and books on the subject. Turns out that if you truly exhaust muscle, it takes at least 72 hours, so 3 days, to fully heal. And so, but a lot of things you read even from medical doctors, physicians, and people that have done a lot of research on the subject say that, you know, it might take 5 days to heal, you know, or 6 days to heal. In my case, I tend to go about 4 days, because a lot of this, again, is logging your results. What makes you feel better? What are you really getting the true good results with? And for me, it's been 4 days typically. And so that's usually what I'll do, is I'll try to work out every 4 days. So the way I do it, because I'm so heat sensitive, I tend to do it at night because it's cooler. I tend to do it in my basement because it's cooler. And then I also do it at night. I rest a little afterwards to get my metabolism back down, but then I go to bed. And so I get to sort of let my body recover and heal to a certain extent while I'm sleeping, which is huge, right? And so again, so now I'll get into the whole, how the whole thing works for lifting weights or strength training. It's not really lifting weights in my case, but it can be. What I do typically is it's 5 exercises. So you're looking at 5 major muscle groups. And what I do is I'll start with pull-ups or chin-ups. What I'm looking to do is exercise the latissimus dorsi, or lat pull. You always hear about the lat pulls in the gym. So latissimus dorsi, or lats, you're looking to exercise that. So that's a big muscle group on your back, but also you're exercising the biceps and things as well. And so I'm looking to do that. And so what I do is I do these pull-ups or chin-ups. I always talk about slow and in control. And when I'm talking slow, I'm talking super slow. So I might take 5 or 10 seconds in one direction for one movement. So I'm talking 5 seconds to 10 seconds on the way down, and then 5 to 10 seconds on the way back up. And it's painful and it's hard, and you probably won't be able to do a full one, let alone a number of them, the first time around. But remember, we're not looking at impressing people. We're not looking at short-term goals. We're not looking like a bodybuilder tomorrow. We're looking at maintaining. We're looking at being in the best physical shape possible. And this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. So we're looking at a year from now. How am I going to look? How am I going to feel? How much easier is it going to be for me to do this stuff versus, you know, what I'm going to be able to do tomorrow? I'm worried that people will think it's silly because I can only do 2 pull-ups or 1 pull-up, or I need help. I need to step in a step stool. So that's okay. I mean, so you're standing on something and just applying a lot of pressure to your arms for now, and then you apply a little less pressure, and eventually you can do a pull-up, and then maybe next time you can do 2. Who knows? It takes as long as you want. It doesn't matter. The important thing is that you're doing it and that you're improving at it. Okay, so we're talking slow, super slow, and in control. Remember, 5 to 10 seconds one direction, 5 to 10 seconds coming back. If you do that right, hopefully you're getting everything you need. You're totally exhausted. You can't possibly do another movement after, say, 4 to 6 reps. So repetitions, 4 to 6 repetitions, you can't possibly do anything else. And so that's really kind of what I'm going for, is total exhaustion, total muscle exhaustion, and 4 to 6 repetitions. And if you do that, and if you do that right, that total exhaustion, then you only have to do that one time. You don't have to do 3 sets like you did in the old days, right? We're talking one time, total muscle exhaustion, and maybe you only have to do it every 5 days. And so suddenly that's very low impact, very low, but it's having a huge metabolic impact, because by going slow and in control, by going to complete exhaustion, you're draining those glycogen stores, so those sugar stores, those energy stores in your muscles, and by draining those, you're regulating blood sugar, so your blood has to replenish those stores, and so what you're getting is less insulin resistance, which for the diabetics in the crowd, that's a big deal. You want to try to eliminate insulin resistance, because that's one of the things that oftentimes causes diabetes, is that insulin resistance, too much blood sugar in your blood, not enough insulin secreted to bring that down to the level it should be at. And so by doing these full movements, by exhausting that muscle fully, you're completely draining those blood sugar stores, and then your blood has to replenish them. That's a great thing metabolically. So we talked about the lats. Now I go from the lats to a chest exercise. And so if you're using the gym, you can use a bench press. I do push-ups. And so I'm talking chest, I'm talking triceps and shoulders, and so I'm doing that, and again, slow and in control. I start up and I'll take 5 to 10 seconds, depending on how I feel, just to come down. And then 5 to 10 seconds, going back up. And I do that, I have it tweaked so where I can do it maybe between 4 and 6 times, usually 4 or 5. I usually don't get to 6. And again, if I feel like I can do more, I take more time doing it. So I might increase the amount of time, because if you take longer to do them, then you can't do as many. And so that's kind of how I work it. That's how I manage it when I can't change the weight, because I'm just doing my own body weight, right? So again, the pull-ups or push-up or pull-ups or chin-ups, I'm coming down 5 to 10 seconds, up 5 to 10 seconds. Do the same thing with the push-ups, 5 to 10 seconds down, 5 to 10 seconds up, and then I go back up to the shoulder level. But now instead of coming down, I'm pushing up. And so what would that be? That's a military press. And so in the gym, that'd be a military press. You're lifting a weight bar or a universal equipment straight up, straight down. Same thing, 5 to 10 seconds up, 5 to 10 seconds down, coming down behind your head. And with me, I use bands. And so I just adjust the length of the band and the strength of the band so that it's the most resistance I can get 4 to 5, maybe 6 reps. And again, really, really slow and in control. And then for the other one, for the opposite of the push-up, now I want to pull towards me, and so that would be a row. And so again, I'm using bands, but row towards you, row away from you. So that can be weights, but it can be bands or something like that as well. 5 to 10 seconds in, 5 to 10 seconds out. Top out at 4 to 6, but if you need help, if you're using bands or weights, really it's easy, because you just decrease the amount of weight that you're using, right? So then you can do it and just increase the weight over time. But really what we're talking about is, again, you're not going to be a muscle head. You're not going to be a bodybuilder overnight. That's not what we're going for. I'm looking to not get worse so fast, right? I'm hoping to maintain, but I'm not looking to not get worse so fast, because I mean, MS is a progressive disease, as many of your diseases are potentially as well. I'm looking to not get bad as fast, to stay as healthy as I can for as long as I can. And so that's what I've chosen to do. So by doing those 4 exercises on the upper body, I'm able to do that. And I've been doing this for a couple of years now, and it really has worked well. I really haven't seen a decline in strength, which I think is huge. I mean, for me, it's a really, really big deal. So then you move to legs. And for legs, for me, my legs are in pretty bad shape. I don't have a lot of strength in them, and if I really cash them out completely, I tend to not be able to use them for a while. So I've had to modify what I do there. Now, what the method I'm talking about would tell you is that squats is the biggest muscle group, and if you're going to do one leg lower body exercise, squats should be it, because squats are going to give you the most muscle activity and exercise the most muscle groups. Again, slow and in control. So 5 to 10 seconds down, 5 to 10 seconds back up. And that's really what that comes down to. I do lunges. So I'll stand up and lunge with one, like say it's my right leg coming forward, and I'll come down 5 to 10 seconds coming down until I touch my left knee to the floor and then come back up. I don't rest on the floor, but then 5 to 10 seconds coming back up. So that's not only exercising the muscle groups that have to push me up and down like that, but it's also all my balance muscles, which is another thing that I have problems with. And so I get kind of a double benefit there. So I keep doing that as much as I can. So it's really 5 major muscle groups. Think about the pulling down and the pushing up, so the lats, and the pushing up, and then the push-ups, and then the rows are the upper body exercises, and then the squats are the lower body exercises. Now that's in my case, 4 days. It can be 3 to 5 days, 6 days even. Just make sure you're doing that. Make sure you're writing down what you're doing, when you're doing it, how you're doing it, and the results you're seeing. And again, as I've said before, there's a lot of studies that show that when you write stuff down, write down goals, for example, you're much more likely to stick to it, because it has to do with commitment. So by writing it down, you're committing yourself to that. Even though it doesn't seem much different than just telling yourself in your head, something about writing it down, there's some magic there that tells you you're committing yourself to doing those things. It's on a calendar or whatever. I think a calendar is a great way to do it, to be honest. So when I do these major muscle groups, the strength training, I'll do that every 4 days. And then on the opposite days, or on the other days, I might take a day or two of rest depending on how I feel that night. I never push it. I've learned, still something I'm learning, because it's still something I screw up sometimes. But if I push it, I pay for it, and there's no question it takes me much longer to recover. So I don't push it. But what I do is I ride a stationary bike on a large part. So it's a recumbent stationary bike on almost zero resistance. So there's almost no resistance there. And I do that, and I'll do that and just watch a TV show on my iPad or something like that, just on Netflix, or I'll have a TV set up so I can watch it. And that's just to keep that blood flowing, those nerves firing, that stimulation going. And that nerve recovery only takes 24 hours. So we talked about the full muscle recovery taking 72 hours, while the nerve recovery only takes 24 hours. And this is why, for example, if you've ever had that experience where you go to the gym and you're just starting a weightlifting program and you feel like you get so much stronger overnight, it's not because your muscle mass is increasing. It's not like your muscles have recovered in that amount of time. It's because your nerve fibers have, in that amount of time, you've trained them and they've recovered. And so you've recruited more nerve fibers in that action. So you get a lot more activity there, even though you're not necessarily recruiting more muscle groups. So keep that in mind. So I just do those things, maybe 10 to 20 minutes on very, very low resistance. But it doesn't have to be stationary bikes. It can be something else. But something to keep those nerves firing and that blood flowing. I think that's huge. So I try to do that, say 5 nights a week. Just another part of that exercising thing. So when we talk about exercise, we talk about training your mind. You know, and I talked about languages and instruments, talked about puzzles and things like that. All that stuff that's available on the internet. Certainly games and things like that are good. We talked about strength training. This is huge, and this is something I don't spend a lot of time doing, but I spent a lot of time researching, and I'm very adamant about keeping up with it. So I do strength training as often as I should, and I stay on top of it. I'm almost religious about it. And then the nerves, exercising the nerves, excuse me, on a stationary bike or what have you. I do that on a regular basis because the nerves recover much faster, and I want to keep those nerves firing, that blood flowing. I think that's a big part of keeping things active and keeping things functioning. So again, write it down on a calendar, keep track of what you're doing, certainly schedule what you're doing. If you have questions for me or comments, I'd be happy to have you write them on the comment section below, You can send me an email as well. I'm happy to respond. So thanks again for watching. I appreciate it. Take it easy. We'll see you next time.